That your current ID may not be enough for domestic flights or entering certain federal buildings soon. Welcome to the world of travel and security in the United States, where the Real ID Act is setting new standards for identification. By May 2025, everyone hoping to board a domestic flight across military bases, step into nuclear power plants, or visit certain federal facilities will need to present a Real ID compliant document. Welcome, Sawadi, Mahaban, Namaste, Hola, Privyet, Kaiso, Konnichiwa. We're all family here, so subscribe and share and get your free ebook in the description below. But what exactly is a Real ID? It's a form of identification that meets enhanced security standards established by the federal government. The initiative was born out of the recommendation from the 9/11 Commission, aiming to prevent fraudulent ID practices and enhancing public safety. To spot a Real ID, just look for the star marked in the upper right corner of the card. No star? Then it's time to think about an update, because the older IDs won't make the cut for specific federal purposes. Post May 2025. Stay tuned to understand how this impacts you and what steps you need to take. Why is the Real ID becoming a requirement now, and why should you care? The journey of the Real ID Act to its current status has been long and winding, reflecting a complex interplay between national security concerns and practical implementation challenges. Initially proposed in 2005 as a response to the 9/11 attacks, the Real ID Act aimed to standardize the security procedures of driver license and identification cards across the United States. The goal was clear: to enhance security and reduce fraud by making it tougher to forge documents used to access certain federal facilities, board domestic flights, and enter nuclear power plants. However, despite this straightforward objective, the path to full enforcement has been anything but direct. For years, the implementation of Real ID was met with resistance and delays. Many states pushed back against what they viewed as a federal overreach, compiled with concerns about the cost and privacy issues surrounding the standardized IDs. This resistance led to multiple extensions of the deadline, giving states more time to comply. Then, the world was hit by the pandemic, an unexpected and unprecedented global crisis that further pushed back the enforcement timeline. The pandemic caused widespread disruption, leading to the closures of many departments of motor vehicle offices and significantly slowing down the process of issuing new IDs. Recognizing these challenges, the deadline was extended several times, reflecting the difficulties posed by the pandemic. Now, after years of delays and extension, a final deadline has been set. May 7, 2025, this date is set in stone, marking a significant shift to a higher standard of security and identification across the country. So what does that mean for you? From May 7, 2025, if you wish to board a domestic flight or enter a military base or visit certain federal buildings, you will need a Real ID compliant document. This new requirement underscores the importance of updating your identification to meet these standards, ensuring your ability to travel and access certain services without interruptions. Mark your calendar. May 7th, 2025 is a crucial date for travelers and many others. Need to convert to a Real ID? Here's how you can do that without a hassle. First, let's talk about what a Real ID is. It's a form of identification that meets increased security standards for state-issued driver's license and identification cards. From May 2025, you'll need a Real ID to board domestic flights, entering military bases, and visiting certain federal buildings. So, how do you convert your current ID or driver's license to a Real ID? The process is straightforward, but requires a bit of preparation. Here's your step-by-step guide. Step 1, gather your documents. You will need your current Michigan driver's license if you live in Michigan, or your ID card. This will serve as proof of your identity. Next, you need proof of your legal presence in the United States. This could be a valid or unexpired U.S. passport or a certified birth certificate. If your current name differs from the one on your birth certificate, you'll need to bring a certified legal name change document. This could include a marriage certificate or a court order. Step 2. Head to your local Secretary of State office. It's a good idea to check if you need an appointment or if you can walk in. Remember to bring all the documents you gathered. The staff there will verify your documents and take you through the next step. Step 3. Understand the fees. States have different prices for Real ID compliant driver license and ID cards. In most areas, the cost is the same as renewing or obtaining a standard new license or identification card. However, Real ID fees include supplemental charges in some states. For example, Pennsylvania has an additional $30 to obtain a Real ID. In some cases, there may be an additional administrative, service, and processing fee. Step 4. Receive your new Real ID. Once your documents are verified and your application is processed, you'll receive your new Real ID. This will be a star and a silhouette of Michigan if you have a Michigan card in the upper right corner, indicating the Real ID compliance. With this document, converting to a Real ID can be simple and straightforward. Remember, being proactive about this conversion will save you time and stress as the deadline approaches. Be ready to fly through airport security with ease. Before you rush out to update your ID, let's check if you're already compliant. Navigating the waters of Real ID compliance might seem daunting, but you could be sailing smoothly without even knowing it. If you possess a U.S. passport, a Department of Homeland Security Trusted Traveler's Card, or a Michigan Enhanced Driver's License or ID, congratulations are in order. These documents are already Real ID compliant. This means that when May 2025 comes, when the Real ID requirement kicks in for domestic flights within the U.S., entry into military bases, nuclear plants, and certain federal buildings, you're set. No additional steps are needed. It's a common misconception that a new form of ID might be acquired to meet these requirements. However, if your current identification falls into one of the mentioned categories, your preparation is complete. You're not just compliant, you're prepared. If you have one of those, you might already be ahead of the curve. Wondering why it's important to have a Real ID? From May 7th, 2025, your world might just be a little bit smaller if you're not Real ID compliant. Imagine this, you're packed and ready for a much needed vacation, or perhaps an important business trip across the country. At the airport, excitement turns into dismay as you realize your standard driver's license isn't accepted for the domestic air travel anymore. Yes, that's right. Without a Real ID, boarding a domestic flight in the US will no longer be a breeze. But the impact doesn't stop at the airport. Want to visit a friend or a family member on a military base? Or need to enter a nuclear plant for work? Perhaps there's a need to access certain federal buildings. In all of these scenarios, a Real ID will be your golden ticket past security. So, consider the conversion to a Real ID not just a compliance task, but a passport to maintaining your mobility across the country. Being prepared means no surprises during your travels or your visits. How will Real ID affect your experiences at a TSA checkpoint and when voting? As we approach the May 7, 2025 deadline, understanding how Real ID impacts daily activities is crucial, especially when it comes to air travel and participating in elections. Let's clear up what you need to know for a smooth transition through TSA checkpoints and at voting booths. Starting from May 7, 2025, if you are 18 or older or planning to fly within the United States, you'll need to present a Real ID compliant form of identification at TSA checkpoints. This could be your Real ID compliant driver's license or an ID card, which is identified with a star marked in the silhouette in the upper right corner. Without this form of ID, you may be prevented from boarding your domestic flight. However, when it comes to voting, the scenario changes slightly. You will not need a Real ID compliant ID to vote. Any state-issued identification, whether it's a standard enhanced or Real ID compliant driver's license or an ID card, will do. If you don't possess any form of a state-issued ID, you'll simply be asked to sign an affidavit of identity to verify your voter status. This ensures that all eligible voters can exercise their right without the need for a Real ID. So while Real IDs add a layer of requirement for air travelers, it does not complicate the voting process. Understanding these requirements ensures you're never turned back at a checkpoint or polling place. Ready to become Real ID compliant? Here's what you should do next. Let's quickly recap the essentials. First, verify your current identification meets the Real ID standards. If you possess a Michigan Enhanced License or a U.S. passport or a DHS Trusted Traveler's Card, you're already set. Otherwise, it's time to plan your visit to your local Secretary of State office. Gather your documents is your next step. You'll need your current driver's license or ID. Bring along a certified birth certificate or a valid, unexpired U.S. passport. If your current name differs from the name on your birth certificate, a certified legal name change document will be required. And remember, keeping these documents ready will streamline your process considerably. Now, why should you update your real ID sooner rather than later? After May 7, 2025, a real ID will be necessary for domestic flights, ensuring military base access, nuclear plant access, and certain federal building access. Updating early will help you to avoid the rush, ensure you're prepared well ahead of time without a last-minute hassle. There's no additional charge for converting to real ID if done during your regular renewal or replacement cycle. Otherwise, a small correction fee applies. So timing your update can be cost effective. Check your ID, gather your documents, and be ready for 2025. Safe travels and smooth entries await you. If you found this content helpful, go ahead and drop a like, subscribe for more content like this. And if you want more videos like this, check out the following videos that will help assist you in traveling internationally as well as domestically. Until next time, bye!